Thank you, Jane. All right, good afternoon. This is Chair French convening the business meeting of the Kansas Corporation Commission for Thursday, April 9th. Not at our regular time, but at 4 p.m. And thank you to my colleagues for accommodating my schedule so I could be here for this meeting. On today's agenda, we have, let me see, we have 10 consent agenda items and we have 3 noticed items. So commissioners, we will begin with our consent agenda. You've had the opportunity to review those 10 items on the consent agenda. Let me ask at this time if you have any questions, beginning with Commissioner Keither.
No question, thanks.
And Commissioner Keen.
For me either, I'd move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say no. The consent agenda is approved. With that, we will move to our noticed items, and we will begin with the first in docket number 25 CONS 3331-CPEN. And this is a proposed order in that docket, and our presenter is Mr. John Myers. Go ahead, John.
Good afternoon, Chair French, and good afternoon, Commissioners. Almost evening, really. The order before you finds that the operator is responsible for the 65 wells at issue in this docket, but it does hold the penalty order in abatement, asks the parties to engage in good faith negotiations to get a viable compliance agreement into the record for the commission to consider, and ask me to schedule a status conference with the parties as presiding officer. I'm available for any questions.
All right, we will, thank you, John. We will turn to the commissioners to see if they have any questions on this item, and I will begin, well, let me begin with Commissioner Keen.
Yes, thank you, Chair French. I'm recusing on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Keither, any questions on this item?
No questions.
All right, well then I will go ahead and move approval of the order as described.
Second.
Sorry, got you mid-drink. So we've got a motion and a second to approve the item described in this docket. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. And we will record, yes, we will record Commissioner Keen as recused in this docket. But the item does pass. So thank you very much, John. And we will now move to our second notice item. This is in docket number 26 EKCE 0149 STG. And this is a proposed order on siting permit and unanimous settlement agreement. And our presenter for this item is Mr. Aaron Bailey. Go ahead, Aaron.
Thanks. Good afternoon. In November, Evergy filed this application to construct an approximately 15-mile transmission line from Evergy's McNew generating station to the Reno County substation to tie it in with the power grid. The application was submitted with the required routing study utilizing the criterion approved by the Commission last year in docket number 24102. Pursuant to KSA 66-1,180, the Commission is tasked with determining the necessity for and the reasonableness of the location of the proposed transmission line while taking into consideration the benefit to both consumers in Kansas and consumers outside of the state, as well as any economic development benefits in Kansas. On January 21st, the Commission held a public hearing on this application in Hutchinson and heard concerns from the public. Also in January, the commission's technical staff, after analyzing the application and proposed route, found that the line is necessary and also addressed the reasonableness of the location of the proposed line. Staff recommended an alternative route to decrease the impact of the transmission line on approximately 9 residences along the proposed route, located generally along East Illinois Avenue. Staff also suggested changes to Evergy's landowner protocols, and both of these modifications were agreed to by Evergy. In February, staff and Evergy filed a motion to approve a unanimous settlement agreement and grant the application and approve the proposed line. We held a hearing on that proposed agreement on March 9th, where the commission heard from witnesses from Evergy and staff, and the commission was able to cross-examine the witnesses. As stated above, the commission is required to determine the necessity and reasonableness of the location of the proposed line, while factoring the benefit to both Kansas consumers and consumers outside of the state, as well as any economic development benefits in Kansas. Both staff and Evergy outlined the increased reliability for all consumers, as it allows for Evergy to provide, quote, reasonable, reliable, and efficient, end quote, electric service by connecting the McNew station to the power grid, and it will also provide Kansas consumers with added reliability and economic benefits. Also, staff and Evergy agreed to the route is reasonable given the modifications of the route that were made. One is suggested by staff, as I stated earlier, and another suggested by a landowner. Staff also found that Evergy properly weighed the routing factors as outlined by the required routing study. As you will recall at the public hearing, there were concerns raised by the public as to Evergy's damage mitigation efforts during and after line construction and proper use of its easement. So the proposed order would require Evergy, at least 30 days prior to construction, to provide notice to any affected landowner of the complaint process for both Evergy and the commission to help more readily and quickly address any such concerns. There is also a requirement for Evergy to certify compliance with the commission-approved landowner protocols at the conclusion of construction of the line. These two items would be presidential, so they would be required in any transmission line siting case. So with that, the proposed order is in front of you, and I can answer any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions on this item? And I will begin this time with Commissioner Keither.
No questions, but I like the modifications. Thank you.
And Commissioner Keen.
No questions for me either. Thank you very much, Aaron, for the thoroughness of your overview. And I think in league with Commissioner Keither, I was most persuaded in the end by virtue of the addition of the damage mitigation process issue and how that was handled, the complaint process that was added, and most importantly too, the compliance certification. These all merit, I think, being treated as being precedential, which is exactly what we're doing here. And I think these provide some protections to landowners that heretofore were not automatically a part of the process. So given that, I am persuaded to be in favor of this. Accordingly, I would move approval of the order.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the order as described. Is there any further discussion? I would just add, I don't have lengthy comments, but I would add one thing that struck me about this proceeding was we held a public hearing, as we always do in line siting dockets, and I thought that the public comments in this docket were particularly helpful to the commission. We had, I think, very reasonable concerns brought forth by the public. We also had suggestions of route modifications that allowed our staff to do more investigation and ultimately improve the route. And so would just call out the fact that we do listen to public hearings. They are a helpful part of the process, and I think they help us improve our orders, and they certainly did in this case. So wanted to make sure that was highlighted. So with that, if there are no further questions or comments, I will call the question. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. The order is approved. With that, we will now move to our third and final noticed item. This is in docket number 26 KGSG 0247 COM, and this is a proposed order making prima facie determination in that docket. And our presenter again is Mr. Aaron Bailey.
All right, thank you. Yes, this complaint was made by a fraternity in Manhattan alleging that Kansas Gas Service overbilled it from November of 2024 through July of 2025 due to a purported meter error. The complainant alleges historically it had paid about $5,000 for this time period, but it had paid approximately $35,000. They further state that the billing returned to normal when the meter was replaced. So we are recommending a finding that the complaint meets the requirements for a prima facie determination and that it be served on KGS for an answer, and I can answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions on this item, beginning with Commissioner Keither
No questions.
and Commissioner Keen?
None for me either. I'd move approval of the order.
All right. We don't have a second yet. Sorry. We now
I'll
have a
second.
motion and a second to approve the order as described in this docket. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say no. The order is approved. Thank you, Aaron. With that, we have come to the conclusion of all the items noticed on today's business meeting agenda. If there's nothing further to come before us this morning, or this afternoon, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.